Listen, I'm just going to take this opportunity. I'll introduce you to myself, who I am, who I represent. I'll also give you a bit of a background in terms of the company I work for and what we do in and around town, and also across Australia, because we're a fairly big company. I'll also then basically just give you a bit of insight in terms of what I look for in terms of people that I employ, and also in terms of what I believe would stand anybody in good stead. What it comes down to then is in terms of the choices you make yourself. Okay, you've got to remember you're in a competing market. Once you're in school, you're very protective once you're in school. That's my lesson from life. Once you leave, you're competing against everybody else. So it's as good as you actually choose to present yourself is the absolute key to the choices you will have going forward in terms of whatever career you choose to pursue. You're not always going to know at this age what you want to do. Okay, and don't be worried about that. Okay, there's a long time ahead of you. There'll be certain things that I suggest you focus on in terms of that are personal attributes that'll stand you in good stead for anything you choose to do in terms of your life and career going forward. Okay, so a little bit about myself. My name's Hayden Shepherd. I'm the general manager for BIS in Whyalla. Just looking around to see if I recognise anybody. I'm also in terms of the general manager of Tasmania as well. So. Effectively, in terms of from a size, and I'm sorry, where do I come from? So, I've lived in Whyalla for nearly 28 years now. I got married when I came across in 1991. This is when in terms of the steelworks. I'm an engineer, I'm a mechanical engineer by qualification. Okay, and I say by qualification. There's a difference between what you acquire as a certificate and education, as opposed to in terms of then from an experience point of view in terms of how you apply yourself, and that's quite important. I'm originally from Wales, South Wales, a little town called Newport, very similar to Whyalla in terms of the whole of the city had a dependency around the steelworks. Okay, so very similar in nature. I can remember the whole of my life growing up in a high school that had the steelworks at the back of it. I can remember from looking out of my bedroom in terms of, it's not meant to be depressive by the way, I look out of my bedroom, I can actually see across, I can see my school, I can see the golf course, and I can see the steelworks in the background. So the whole of my upbringing was based in terms of, I could see the steelworks. Everything I felt about it in terms of was I believed I was destined to work in the steelworks, and that's how you feel sometimes. Okay. My father was a crane driver. He was a crane driver in the steelworks for 30 years. My mother was a cleaner in the steelworks. So it doesn't matter about a background or anything else. People choose to work. So in terms of whatever they can actually do to go forward. From an education point of view, in terms of like I said, I'm a mechanical engineer. I went to a place called my high school. There was nearly 900 people in my high school. It was a comprehensive school, and it was finished from one of the housing estates in Newport. I was very fortunate at the time in terms of had a good family around me, and also had good teachers who basically inspired me to want to be better myself. Out of 900 people, only maybe around about 20 to 30 actually went to university. Another 100 to 200 would have gone into apprentices or in terms of from a trades point of view. And I have absolute admiration for both paths. Okay? When I went to university, I was lucky enough to go to Bath University in England at the time. Some of the best people I learned from on my course were people that actually went from school to an apprenticeship first. What you learn from that is you actually learn what work's about. When you go from a school, you go forward, and even at university, in terms of you learn a lot of theory. You demonstrate that ability to be able to learn. That's purely what it is, okay? Hopefully you're passionate about something you're going in the first place where you actually generally enjoy learning that subject. However, if you go for apprenticeship, it keeps all your paths open to you. So at this stage when you've got choices to make in terms of, you can keep your options open in terms of how you want to increase your learning going forward and what you choose to do later in life. So you don't have to decide straight away. So from university, in terms of, I was fortunate in terms of I did work at the steelworks, but I worked as an engineer. As an engineer, in terms of my first job, I worked on a hot dip galvanizing line, which I don't expect you to know about. This is where they took sheet metal that had been basically rolled down, and actually we put through a hot dip galvanizing line, which is putting a very thin coating of zinc aluminum on the steel. That steel was then basically put into coils and taken away to the can industry. So any car you see, actually, any car you generally see, the bodywork is generally from steel, in terms of not that I produced, but in terms of it was around from steelworks. And that was the origin for it. Around 91, I was fortunate in terms of applying for a job in Australia and Whyalla. I came across as an engineer. I worked in terms of the, we call it the combination cast in 91. This is when they built the first casting machine in the steelworks. Is everybody au fait with the steelworks in your own town? Has everyone got people actually, family or brothers or sisters or cousins that work in steel in this town? Or mining? Vice versa? Okay, so I was fortunate I worked in a big project. I learned from that project, again, to work within the team. The team at the time, there was people that came all over Europe, all over from America. They took the best skills available at the time. What I identified at the time was in terms of there was a lack of the right skills that were being developed in the city and within the town. And that's why it's important, like programs yourself, in terms of is to keep building up the future skills and future capability, not only of the steelworks in this town, but also in the bright future that I believe GFG Alliance will now create for this town and city. So you're going into an area at the moment now where the city has a bright future. Have no doubt about that. The opportunity that you will now potentially have, if you're willing to take that opportunity on, are basically better than anybody's had in the last 5 to 10 years. You've got a great potential future ahead of you if you're willing to put the hard work in and actually think about how you actually want to represent yourself when you're competing with others. Okay. After the steelworks, so after the copy caster, I then basically was in charge of maintenance in the steel making plants, where they make the steel and then went into the caster. I've also in my time been in charge of development, been the manager of the rolling mills, been the manager of the pellet plant. For the last 5 years of my time, I basically went into the mining business. I was in charge of the whole of the supply chain from the mines all the way through to the rail, the crushing, all the way into the sheds inside the town. Okay, so I got a variety of different experiences, and again, part of that's in terms of having enthusiasm and actually looking for something to basically genuinely excite you. I left One Steel at the time, about 5 years ago, to join BIS. I joined BIS because in terms of as a company, in terms of I was looking for something that was basically challenging. I needed the next challenge in my personal life, I needed my next challenge in terms of my career. And the opportunity to work with a contracting group that basically serviced the steel industry was an exciting opportunity. Your choice is, you can work within the companies, you can work for a multitude of contractors, and like I said to you, in terms of for this town and the city, this is a very good time in terms of the opportunities that you will face will be better than anything you've had in the recent past. Okay? Does anybody know who BIS is? Anybody's got any family that works for BIS? Who?
Samaya McInnes.
Oh, okay, yeah. Nice one. It's surprising in terms of, again, like I said, it's a small town, so everybody knows everybody. So if you actually, if you don't have a brother or sister or mother or father that works in the company, in the company anyway, you'll generally know somebody that does. It's a small town. Okay. Do you know what we do? Maybe other than yourself. Does anybody know what BIS does? Okay, that's all right. So, BIS in Wales, you'd be surprised to know then, in terms of BIS has been in Wales since 1959. It's our 60th anniversary next year. Originally, in terms of there's a lot of work we actually done the cranes. So we see Max cranes now. At the moment, it used to be BIS Industries cranes in the past, or Brambles cranes. We also basically have a lot of on-road haulage in terms of where you see a lot of different people now in that space. What we now focus on, particularly in and around Wales, is we have 3 business units that we have control of. I'll start at the mines. So on the mine side, in terms of a place called Iron Knight, which is about 60 kilometres within the Middleback Ranges. We've been there for nearly 12 years now, where we have a crushing operation. So we have two crushers capable of taking 800 mil rock down to less than 14 mil. We've also developed capability with our crushers now to take an 800 mil rock down to 32 mil, down to 14 mil, and now down to less than 2 millimeters. So if you think of the size of products we're dealing with, again, that's significant, not only just technology, and that's not a whole big spend in terms of new equipment, that's about having people who are enthusiastic, that's about people that actually have a willingness to learn, that's about people that basically can see a challenge in front of them and look at solutions and how to basically solve problems. Okay, that's one of the key attributes in terms of always looking in terms of what you or we can do better. If you're a contractor, you're always looking in terms of how you can best service the client. The client in this scenario being Liberty for the steelworks and also CIMIC for the mining business. The reason why we crush product is in terms of twofold. We crush product that basically goes into the pellet plant, so it's railed. It's railed into the steelworks and it's used as a blend of the material that goes into the pellet plant with magnetite ore. Okay, and that produces the pellets. The pellets, 80% of the pellets then go into the blast furnace as iron feed. That's 63% iron, and that's in conjunction with 20% of lump feed. Effectively, that's the main feed that goes into the iron making process that produces the iron that then goes to the steel making plant. The other ore, in terms of anything that's minus 32 or minus 14, is for the export business, predominantly in terms of China as an export operation. We're producing anywhere between, last year was about 9.5 million tonnes a year, to this year being down to probably about 7.5. The reason why it's a little bit low is because they're just chasing higher grade, because there's a higher demand in the markets now by the customers. To take a higher grade material, because in terms of it's more cost effective for them, and it's also from an environmental point of view means they can actually get more efficiency through the process. So you've got to constantly be changing and adapting to the market you're in terms of the environment you're faced with, and situations and challenges that basically sometimes not immediately in control, but then that's when you focus about, okay, well, what can you control and how do you go about it? And again, they're key attributes that basically anybody working either in BIS or the steelworks or mining or any industry are some of the things that you've got to basically aspire to achieve. In the town, once it's roiled into the town, we also basically run the export sheds. So if you're actually up on Hammerfield and you look into the steelworks itself, you can see the big sheds that basically by the water the jetties. We've been running them for 12 years. So what we do is we bring the rail product into the sheds. We have to control grade, and we also then basically outload the product through the export facilities into the barges, which are about 12,000 tonne. Barges are then taken into the Gulf, and they feed into 180,000 tonne vessels. And effectively can do maybe 2-3 of those vessels a month, which then goes up to 9.5 million tonnes a year. That's the industry that's around you. That's the mining business. Our third arm of our business, which we've predominantly been in since 1959, is what we call the manufacturing business. So we work in conjunction with the blast furnace. We handle and process slag, which is a byproduct from the iron making process. So once you've actually molten iron comes out and goes into the treadles of the steel making process, the slag contains all basically the byproducts that they can then have to be processed and handled. So we handle and we process that material. One of the challenges we also face is in terms of what can you do with the slag. Slag generally you can actually put to stockpile and basically build up over time, and again it's a waste product. Or alternatively, you can actually again think about the market, think about it in terms of what's around you. You can crush that slag product down, and that's basically also the key ingredient to cement. It can be a key ingredient to cement, it can be road base. So for instance, in terms of a lot of the infrastructure that's now being built in terms of around Coltana or even around the town, again, if it's a local, low-cost product that can basically, in terms of go into those applications, that's then taking a waste product and creating value with that. And then that's again how companies define themselves. That's how they actually can also create value for the clients and the customers who work with. And that's one of the challenges you've always got to do is in terms of it's not about you're not there from 9 to 5. Not about clocking in, clocking out, and basically doing your time. And again, I'll cover the attributes, what I look for in terms of people outside of this. And when it comes into it, it's in your choices. You can think about those, you can actually think about which ones actually, what excites you generally, whether it's sport or any hobbies or activities. And you're going to be able to actually translate the energy you have for them or the enthusiasm and how that applies to a basically future career going forward. So in manufacturing also we do the slag. We also basically have 40-ton drum trucks, 90-ton units. We have 9 loaders. We do all the materials handling across the whole steel site. So again, we're logistics. We also support in the whole steel works. The other operation is we process scrap. Scrap is steel byproducts that basically in terms of represent maybe 20% add the iron, add the scrap to the steel, and that produces then the primary steel that goes into slabs, billets, and blooms. Effectively go to the rolling mills or to Newcastle, or into basically the products you then see in terms of structural steel, rails, or in terms of flat products for car or manufacturing industries. So that's what we do. We employ about 200 people. A combination in terms of our own employees and also in terms of casuals. The casual workforce is also there in terms of gives us an opportunity to look at people. It gives them an opportunity to basically demonstrate the right work ethic, and allows us to basically make sure we can bring those people into our business and create the right team dynamic. We also basically support nearly 70 suppliers in this town. So the suppliers being from could be simple stationery all the way up in terms of material supplies for our businesses, in terms of diesel all the way up in terms of any consumables. So any business that supports the steelworks outside of that, a small company, you can imagine the dynamic it then has. Okay, 200 people, 70 small businesses. 200 people allowing for the fact that a family may have basically 2 people. Immediately you start to see the impact it has on in terms of the community. We're also strong support of the community because we also believe in this town. All our people are from Wyler. If they're not from Wyler, from the local region. We don't have any fly in, fly out. This is all about for us in terms of supporting the community and making sure there's a future for the likes of yourselves going forward. We strongly believe in that. Any questions? Because there's nothing worse than somebody just standing in front of you, just plowing ahead and basically just talking to you. Do you have any questions whatsoever? Not unusual. Listen, I address the work group on a regular basis, and in fact, if I can actually even get a question sometimes, it's quite hard work. Okay, it's all right. They'll come. So, what are we looking? So, what are the types of trades? So, we basically have diesel mechanics. So, we have a workshop. So, you can imagine with our industry, we have a lot of mobile plant. Anything from we've got like a 988 loader, which is about 12-ton capacity, right up to 25-ton capacity, the big loaders you see on the mine sites and also in the sheds. So trades we have basically in terms of diesel mechanics. Diesel mechanics, for anybody that basically is generally interested in terms of mobile plants or automotive, fantastic demand for diesel mechanics. We cannot get enough diesel mechanics. We currently run in terms of, again, from our own apprenticeship program. Over a large number of years, we've worked very closely with the career employment group because, again, it's part of bringing people through, generating the skills that we require for our industry. We've basically had 61 apprentices over our time. I currently have 3 apprentices that are training to be diesel mechanic, one in his final year and 2 in his second year. We chose to keep running apprentices all the way through the administration in the tough couple of years, past point of view. So if you have a genuine interest in terms of mechanics, if you're genuine interest in terms of machines, again, consider potentially being a diesel mechanic. An extension of diesel mechanic, where again is a higher value, again is what we call an auto electrician. So that's a diesel mechanic that also basically then learns the electrical side of the business. So someone that can actually look at the machine and not only from a mechanical components and basically take a machine apart, but also how it interfaces now with a lot of the machines we now have are much more sophisticated in terms of black box control systems that actually make them efficient to run. So that's a natural extension from that point of view as well. So if you have a bias for like electrical, interested in electrics or interested in terms of mechanics, that's like a combination of the two. Again, in terms of they are not only paid a little higher, but also in terms of they're highly valued. But it's not easy to get there. You've got to have the right attitude, and you've got to basically really apply yourself to get to that point. The other trades we have in terms of is electricians. Again, you'll always need electricians, you'll always need fitters. In our business we have a combination of fitters, and we also have a combination of electricians. What we also do more so in our business is we don't generally have straight trades. So once actually they do have the trade, we also basically have at least 6 of our current employees going through what I call dual trades. So they may be, for instance, a mechanic, but again they're learning electrical. They may be in terms of a boiler maker, but are learning to be a fitter. So we actually, when you get into industry, there's also still that opportunity to continue to learn. Okay? So that's something, again, it doesn't end after you finish school. It doesn't end after you go to become an apprentice. It doesn't end once you're in a job. That opportunity to continue to develop new skills is always there. And the more skills you learn, the more skills you apply, is where you can expect to be in terms of be attractive to an employer, but also from your own point of view, ultimately in terms of what you seek to basically generate money for in terms of yourself or your families going forward in the future. You've got to work hard, you've got to work hard to be able to achieve that. You're not going to have money given to you right up front. You've got to work hard in that space to basically make sure in terms of people respect you. Also, you show respect for other people. And then given that opportunity, again, you have choices to make for yourselves going forward. Okay? So like I said, electricians, fitters, boilermakers. Again, even in terms of how people are boilermakers in the workshop. We do a lot of repairs. We have to basically, in terms of, we do that in-house. And outside of that, they are the basic classical trades we have across the services our business, but also services the steelworks, also services the mining business. So fitters, electricians, diesel mechanics, boilermakers. This question I got asked when I first went to the steelworks, not this steelworks, when I first basically, whilst I was at university, because I worked at the steelworks whilst I was at university. They taught me to be a basic boilermaker. They taught me to be able to do welding, taught me how to cut steel. Because again, you've got to be able to know what you're dealing with. Is anybody around here, again, you mechanically minded, or basically you mess around with your own bikes, or in terms of, again, I'm not sure if you're too early for cars, or that thing? Do anybody work on machines? Currently? Yeah. It's not right or wrong, because again, when I got asked the question, I'll be honest to you, in terms of a chief engineer was a Scottish guy who was really, he was in his late 60s, had always been in steel, and he was quite gruff, and he asked me two questions at my interview, my first interview. First of all, he said, if I had a clock, this is not a digital clock, it's had a clock. If it stopped working, what would I do? And I was naive at the time, I knew kind of what I wanted to do, and I knew there was a steelworks in front of you. I basically said, listen, I try to work out what was wrong with it, but ultimately in terms of I get someone to look at it and fix it, I get someone else to do it. What he was looking for, and this is where he come from historically, was in terms of, do you take it apart? To what extent do you actually try to understand in terms of like what was wrong with it? So do you have that aptitude of basically, do you have that enthusiasm, do you actually have the drive, do you have the curiosity to really try and understand in terms of why things either work or don't work, why you want to do something. Don't feel as if in terms of you have to do that, because this is where the enthusiasm. Think about why you want to do it. Think about in terms of, again, what type of industry you want to go in. The one thing I'd ask you in terms of, for instance, if you go to an interview, if you're coming to my business for an interview and I welcome you, any of you, to basically put your hand up for apprenticeship if that's what you really want to do. One of the first questions I'd ask you is in terms of what research have you done about my company? What do you know about any company, whether it's my company, whether it's the steelworks point of view? The thing I didn't have when I was actually at university and such, I didn't have even mobile phones at that point. Didn't have, again, likewise, we just had shared computers. Get to understand either the company, get to understand the industry, Google it, research it. Think about in terms of, again, what will give you questions that you can ask at that forum. Because they'll ask you, they'll put you on the spot, they'll basically ask you, well, why do you want a job? Why do you want to work here? What's your aptitude? Why do you want to be a fitter? Why do you want to be an electrician? You don't have to know 100% what you want to do for the rest of your lives. I promise you, okay? But what I'll take you through at the moment in terms of there'll be some attributes that will stand you in good stead. So whatever you choose to do, if you think about in terms of when you're in a workplace, how you conduct yourself, or in terms of whether you're in an interview, in terms of how you sell yourself, that's very important. Okay, and this is some of the lessons I've learned. And again, I've been fortunate, like I said, we've had 61 apprentices go for our business, and I'm proud of that. From a company point of view, and again, they're all local. The 3 apprentices that work for us now at the moment in terms of their fathers work for us. You don't have to work for us to be getting an apprenticeship. It was just at this time, over the last 3 years, it was something we could do to help them from a family point of view to make sure their children understood in terms of they had a future. I hold them accountable, their fathers hold them accountable. Trust me, they will be successful. You get through our apprenticeship, again, likewise in terms of if you've got the right attitude, you will also get a job. But more so, I don't have to basically say who gets a job and who doesn't get a job. The people you work side by side with will be the judges of you. You've got to remember that. So the attitude you bring into a workplace, you will be judged, engaged heavily in terms of how you present yourself in any workplace. All this is in your control. All this is stuff that based in terms of you don't have to necessarily learn, but you look at role models. You can ask questions, seek information, find out, show enthusiasm. Okay? I'm going to take you through just 7 simple points. Okay, and they're not meant to be rocket science, and I'm not going to test you on it, okay? But just think about it. If you want to jot them down, what I'll do is I'll send them through later on anyway, in terms of they're not rocket science, but again, this is what I look for in people either that work for me in biz currently, or in terms of, again, if there's anybody coming to a company in terms of what I look for. The first one is a strong work ethic, and it's the willingness to do more. Don't go in and assume you're just going to clock on, you're going to clock off. If you spend the whole of your time in a day basically just doing the bare minimum or just waiting for someone to tell you what to do, it's not good enough. It's not going to be good enough going forward. Just have that willingness to do more. Okay? Dependable. Be punctual. Don't be late. Okay? Have respect for the people you work with, have respect for the processes, have respect for the companies we service. Be punctual. Have a commitment to complete the work that you've basically undertaken, been trained for. In that, you don't have to be an expert. Again, one of the things I ask each of you to consider, it's okay to ask a question. Don't only ask a question, but if you don't know, ask. This is not a test. Even in any company, it's more a measure, I think, more of people that basically are willing to generally learn, but I don't expect you to be experts. I don't expect you to basically know every single thing in front of you. But if you ask simple questions, if you actually ask people around you, they will respect you for that. And if they don't respect the question, they're also maybe not necessarily the right people to work with, the people in that group as well. So that might be more to do with them as opposed to you. Ask questions. You're not expected to know the answer every single time. Positive attitude. Again, one of the things that can kill a workplace is in terms of if you're negative, if you come in with a bad attitude, if you come in you're a bit miserable, or in terms of if you've got a job in front of you and all the first thing you do is you drop your head, you start scuffing your shoes, you start twitching, and you do everything you possibly can but not to do the job. So that creates a really negative environment for everybody. And one of the most important things in terms of you'll be one of a number of people that basically we rely on to get the work done. It's going to allow us to A, get paid, but also service the client going forward, their needs. They're not going to take excuses. So you've got to have that positive attitude. I'm not asking you to be happy all the time, but I'm asking you also to basically make sure in terms of you can switch it off and bring it on at the right time, but be focused in terms of the work you've got to do. Self-motivated. Again, as an apprentice, the one thing that I'd encourage you to do, whether you're an apprentice, whether you're a technician, or whether you want to be an engineer, you want to go to university, they're all very similar. University, that point of view, again, it's what you put into it is what you'll also get out of it. From a self-motivation point of view is, I need you to be able to work with little direction. If you're there all the time, so you'll be trained, and you'll also, if you're an apprentice or you're learning for the first time, you'll have somebody always with you. Part of their job is to make sure in terms of they're teaching you, they're showing you how to do the job. But I also need you in terms of when you're asked to do a job, it's not a case of basically just doing that. It's basically, if you've got a job, take ownership for it. Take absolute ownership for it. If I've got to keep coming back to you individually and say, okay, what are you doing now? I've done this. What about the next task? Okay, I'll do the next task. Don't do it. Understand, ask. If you've done the job, you're ahead of time, it's not about flocking you. It's just that enthusiasm. It's having respect for the people around you, having respect for what we do. Ask though, in terms of, don't rely on someone telling you what to do all the time. As you come out of school, as you go to college, you go to university, you go straight into industry, you're not always going to have people around you telling you what to do. It may feel like it sometimes, but this is back in your control. You can choose, basically in terms of your own work ethic. You can choose how you intend to apply yourself. You can choose to ask questions. You can choose to basically to continue to learn new skills. Team orientated. You're going to have, again, you'll be one of a broader team. Generally, again, whilst you may work on your own at times, there are also sometimes in terms of the size of the gear that we work on in terms of we have teams that work in and around that. We have teams that work back to back on shifts on a single job. That goes in terms of how they basically, the work that goes into that machine at that time. Is it on schedule? Is it the time? Do they have the right parts? Do they have the right materials? Do we have the right skills? And basically they hand that to the next shift, and I'll get to a key point in that in a minute. Effective communicator. No one is an expert at standing up in front of a group of people, and you're not measured by in terms of how well you can do that. But an effective communicator is someone that's willing to ask questions. I'm not put off by people if you don't ask a question. This is not always a normal forum. But in terms of the ability to actually provide clarity in terms of either what you are asking for or to even test for understanding. A good communicator is someone that basically listens, but also at the same time, if you don't quite know or you actually want to be 100% clear, ask questions. You get huge respect for asking questions. And it's about getting clarity. It's about getting certainty about friendships. So this is where you've got to think about how you actually apply yourself. It's where you've got to think about in terms of think about the company you'd like to work for. Think about the work they do, research. Have a look about what it is. Use that to simulate the questions you want to ask. Like I said, I was naive. That first interview I went to, I walked out of it, I thought I was gone, done and dusted. I think the only thing that saved me was the fact in terms of I was there, I'd actually chased down the job. There was no job advertised. I actually went over on the summer and said, listen, I'd really love to work for this company. Again, my father works in the company, but I'd really like to learn the company. That's what got me in. It was more enthusiasm and basically getting off my ass instead of waiting for an opportunity and go and seek. I learned that first day though, in terms of from when you're talking to people, is I started to understand, okay, what am I getting myself into? And that stood me in good sense ever since. I'm not an expert, you continue to learn. Doesn't matter what job you're in, doesn't matter what you do, you will continue to learn. And if you apply yourself, if you're willing to learn, then you create your own opportunities. Any other questions?
Have you always wanted to be in steel?
I grew up, a bit like most of you, I grew up with steelworks. Like I said, I could look into my bedroom, and it wasn't depressing. I quite liked it. I could see the steelworks. I could see when they're actually on a good day and a bad day. I like steel. I like steel because in terms of it was the industry that was there. It's exciting from, it's a large, big industry, so the variety of jobs. I've been fortunate since I've been in Australia, since I've actually been in the steelworks. I change job every 2.5 years, 3 years. Not because I was bored and such, because there's lots of opportunities. Like I said, I've worked in steel making, I've worked in the rolling mills, I worked in the pellet plants. When the blast furnace had problems, I was appointed to be the lead investigator, so in terms of applying a problem-solving process to actually understand what happened with the blast furnace. I've been on the supply chain. Again, all that is exciting. And you've got to put yourself out there to stand a chance to do that. And you can create your own destiny. It's not again you just want to put it. I like to think I was enthusiastic. I like to think in terms of I worked well with people. I have genuine respect for everybody I worked with. That creates a lot of opportunities for you. You follow that as advice in terms of that will open a lot of doors for you. There is steel though, but again, steel was the start of it. You can go to mine. There's lots from an engineering point of view, from a trades point of view. You're not restricted. You can do light vehicles, you can do heavy vehicles. You can do anything you choose to do. Once you have those skills, once you have that qualification, the qualification is just a ticket to the game. It's, people will ask you, are you qualified? Have you been trained in this? So that's part of your challenges. If you do the hard yards to get that qualification. Once you get that qualification, I promise you in terms of once you've done that one, you want to do more. You won't want to just be that. You want to say, like the question you just asked in terms of oil electrician. It's a good question to ask because in terms of you've got to keep the span, okay, well, if I'm here now, what can I do next? If I do this, am I going to do this for the next 5 years, 10 years, okay, or in that time frame, okay, could I do this? What have I got to learn to be able to do this? What experience have I got to gain to be able to do the next step? You also may choose, and don't ever rule it out, you may choose to go to university. You may choose to go to university because again, you're going down a different career path. You may then choose to say take mechanical in terms of aerospace, you may go down petrochemical, you may go down a different industry base. There will be choices that you potentially could have if you apply yourself.
Thank you.
That's all I got. Any more questions? The one thing that I will say for you, and this of course I'm going to say to Kath and yourself, is if you ever as a group want to come around and we'll take you on a bus and show you the steelworks and we'll show you the work we do, just let us know. Okay, and we'll do that. What I'll be able to do is then I'll actually show you exactly where we work, I'll show you exactly what we do, and you'll get a bit of a feel for that in terms of again what industry looks like, and also again where you do work and what you could do. I'll happily do that for you as well. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.